Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great day. Sorry for not getting the episode out yesterday. Had something, urgent I needed to do and wasn't able to get out an episode. So we're putting an episode out for Thursday. This will only be temporary. This is temporary. This is not, forever. This will be the only time I put an episode out for Thursday. Usually the Hockey Talk TG podcast comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. But we're just putting out an episode today because I was unable to get an episode out yesterday. So, yeah. And also on Tuesday, you guys saw me, or actually, if you did see, I did put out a schedule of what the Hockey Talk with TG podcast will look like for these next few weeks with the trade deadline happening next Friday. So tomorrow we get an episode out, the Hockey Talk TG podcast. And then on Monday, March 3rd, there will be an episode out. Wednesday, March 5th will be an episode out. But on that episode, I will talk about the NHL trade deadline, preview it, who will be on the trade market, who will be buyers, who will be sellers, who's more likely to get traded, and that kind of stuff. So that's what I'll be talking about on next Wednesday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. And then for next Friday, as you guys know, it's NHL trade deadline day. There's no episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on that day because of NHL trade deadline day. And so the league will be going around reporting every trade that happens. You'll hear Elliot Friedman discuss it. You'll hear NHL Network discuss it. Basically, all these reporters going around, and that every trade that happens, they'll discuss it. They'll tell you. So you'll be following along right there. You even will hear from Frank Saravari, who does a daily Face-Off podcast as well. So you'll be hearing it from those guys, from those networks. And then the following Monday will be an NHL trade deadline recap episode where I will recap the trades that happened that Friday, and I will give my thoughts on the trade, who are the winners, losers of the trade, what the impact will be of that trade, and that kind of stuff. So make sure that you're tuned in to the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, getting you for the latest NHL news, teams, players, stats, all the good stuff I talk about on the podcast, and just general general hockey news in general. All right, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. So Alex Ovechkin, he scores goal number 883 in the Capitals. 3-1 loss to the Flames on Tuesday. And so the Capitals move to 38-12-8 of the season. They're back in action today against the St. Louis Blues. So we could see Alex Ovechkin on the score sheet in that one as he moves closer and closer to Wayne Gretzky's goal record of 894 goals. Capitals are still either first or second in the league, that neck and neck with the Winnipeg Jets, which could be a potential Stanley Cup final matchup right there. And of course, Alex Ovechkin's goal came on the power play. That was his 320th career power play goal. And like I said, he's 12 goals away from passing Wayne Gretzky on the NHL's all-time goal-scoring list. 24 games remaining in the regular season for the Capitals. Like I said, they're in action today against the St. Louis Blues. And their last game for the Capitals is against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Steel City. And what better way to possibly break the goal record than to do it against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Steel City of Pittsburgh. But as a Blackhawks fan, I would love to see Alex Ovechkin break the goal record against us. He did score his 800th career goal against us. That's what I said on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I said that he scored his 800th career goal against us. I also mentioned the possibility of him getting to 900 career goals before he retires. I talked about that on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast. So if you missed that discussion, you want to go ahead and check it out. But with the way that Alex Ovechkin is playing of late, it is inevitable that he will score 900 career goals because he's Ovi, he's a goal scorer, and he's putting up, I think he has 8 goals in his last 8 games, correct me if I'm wrong. So it is inevitable that he will get 900 career goals before he retires. I know that's out of the question as of right now, but like I said, with the way that he's playing of late, and if he continues to stay healthy, sticks around for the 2025-26 NHL season, it will be inevitable that he will get to 900 career goals. And that goal in the power play was his 30th goal of the season. He is the 4th player in NHL history to score at least 30 goals at age 39 or older. Gordie Howe, he did it 3 times. Johnny Buck, hopefully I pronounced that last name right, he did it 1 time. Teemu Selanne, he done it 1 time. So Alex Ovechkin is in some great company right there. But like I said on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast, we're looking at on March 18th that Alex Ovechkin could break the goal record. Of course, the Capitals will play the Red Wings on that day. And that will be a home game, I believe, for Washington. So it would be nice to see Alex Ovechkin break the goal record in front of, the hometown Washington Capitals fans. And of course, like I said on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, not only would be a great moment in hockey history, but it will be a great moment in sports history. So let me know if you guys think that Alex Ovechkin could get to 900 career goals. I believe he can. It is possible, and it's inevitable that he'll get to 900 career goals if he keeps playing the way that he's playing. All right, so moving on from that, we are going to be discussing about the Trevor Zegras 3-game suspension. So, of course, Trevor Zegras, he was suspended 3 games for interference against Michael Rasmussen on Sunday, February 23rd. So the Ducks were taking on the Red Wings in that game, and the Ducks lost in overtime to the Red Wings. And this incident occurred at 17 minutes and 17 seconds into the second period. And so he will miss games against the Buffalo Sabres, which, of course, that game was on Tuesday. Ducks lost 3-2 to the Buffalo Sabres on Tuesday, and he'll miss the game today against the Vancouver Canucks, and he'll miss Saturday's game against the Chicago Blackhawks. And the game against Buffalo actually wrapped up the Ducks' 4-game road trip in which they were 2-1-1 during the span, 0-2 since the Four Nations break. So the Ducks have lost 2 in a row since coming back from the Four Nations. And going into the Four Nations, they won 4 straight games. And they won 7 of their last 9 games heading into the Four Nations. But after that, it's kind of going into a little bit of a slump. And so Trevor Zegras will return on March 4th when the Ducks face the Oilers. Of course, that'll be a road game for Anaheim. So they'll head up to Edmonton and take on Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. Impact on the Anaheim Ducks. So, of course, Trevor Zegras, I would say he's a key player. I think he's still a key player for the Ducks. But, of course, that will, hurt the Ducks with him being out of the lineup. You should take a look at his 2024-25 season statistics. Trevor Zegras has 16 points in 34 games played, so 7 goals, 9 assists for 16 points in 34 games played. So, seems like after the 2022-23 season, his stats have gone, kind of low. Last year, I believe he had 15 points. This year, 16 points. He could still rack up some more points this season as well. But this season, last season have not been the best seasons for Trevor Zegras so far. So of course, his 65-point season was when he was scoring, Michigans and, that kind of stuff that happened 2022, 2023. And then he had a good 2021, 2022 season where he had like 61 points in 75 games. Again, he was still doing Michigans and, creating unbelievable plays that year as well. So we could see Trevor Zegras on the trade market at the deadline, though. Ducks probably looking to move him. I will get into more of this next Wednesday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. But I did see a New York Post article saying that the Rangers would try to trade Alexis Lafreniere to Anaheim for Trevor Zegras. I think that was on like February 15th, 16th when I saw that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, yeah, we could see Trevor Zegras on the trade market at the deadline for next Friday. But like I said, I will get into more of that on next Wednesday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, where I'll just talk about trade deadlines, who we'll see on the market, which teams will be buyers, sellers, and that kind of stuff. All right, so with the Four Nations wrapping up last week, I thought it would be fitting to, discuss some of the top 5 takeaways for the Four Nations and, what can we expect from the 2026 NHL Olympics in Milan, Italy. So it's been almost a week since the championship game between USA and Canada, in which Canada won 3-2 in overtime. Connor McDavid with the gold medal goal right there. Since it's almost been a week, and they'll release the part 2, the Four Nations unveiled a documentary for this Saturday, so be on the lookout for that. Wait, no, I think it's this Sunday. I think it's this Sunday that they'll release it. I don't think it's Saturday. I think it's this Sunday they'll release the part 2 for the Four Nations unveiled documentary. Part 1 is out now on the NHL YouTube channel. It came on NHL Network, so you'll be able to find it on there. But without further ado, here are my top 5 takeaways from the NHL's Four Nations face-off, which wrapped up last week. So number 1, Canada's overtime victory over USA. So this game actually averaged at least, correct me if I'm wrong, 16.3 million viewers across North America tuned in for that game. You even had people who usually don't tune into hockey watching the game. And I feel like if that's the way to grow the greatest sport in the world, then do it. I am all in for it. Don't do the All-Star game if the Four Nations certainly seems to attract people who, usually wouldn't watch hockey or tune into hockey or like hockey. If that's the way that can make the game of hockey grow, then do it. Do it. Don't do the All-Star game. And I had this discussion before on one of my episodes of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. If the Four Nations is what is growing the game of hockey and the sport and making it more diverse, then do it. Do it. Make the call. Don't go back to All-Star games. So, yeah. But, yeah, I did enjoy that game. Like I said, I think it averaged 16.3 million viewers across North America. The game was on ESPN in the United States, and I believe it was on Sportsnet that you were watching in Canada. And Connor McDavid had the, gold medal goal in the game to win it for Canada in the Four Nations. So, yeah. And then number 2, the viewership game. So, like I said, it averaged, I believe, 16.3 million viewers across North America, which is the most watched non-NFL event on ESPN. So, that is a good job. I got to give an applause. I gotta give an applause to the league. That is a great job right there. Most watched non-NFL event on ESPN. What do you know? But like I said, if that's what is growing the game of hockey, then do it. Do not go back to the All-Star games. And then number 3, the USA and Canada rivalry. So, of course, everybody loves the USA and Canada rivalry, especially if you are a hockey fan. If you are an avid hockey fan, you probably would know something about it, but probably wouldn't know as much about it. So, of course, USA-Canada rivalry in the Olympics was certainly unreal. I mean, not the Olympics, the Four Nations. Certainly unreal to watch, especially their first game where they had the 3 fights in 9 seconds. You had Matthew Tkachuk scoring off against Brandon Hagel. You had Brady Tkachuk scoring off against Sam Bennett. And then you had JT Miller dropping a miss against Colton Parayko for the 3 fights in 9 seconds to start off that game for the first game the Four Nations, which USA did win that game 3-1. Dylan Larkin with the game-winning goal in that game. Jay Gensel finished the game with 2 goals. But yeah, that was a great first game for USA and Canada. And despite the Americans and Canadians booing the national anthems, Americans booing the national anthem for Canada, Canada booing the national anthem for US. I felt like it was a great game, but I really wish that none of those people would boo the national anthem. But I know that Donald Trump, I believe, was trying to make Canada 31st state, and that was kind of stupid to do. So in a way, I actually am kind of glad that Canada beat USA to win that game in overtime, just to just stop that nonsense right there. Because Canada is a country, separate country, is not part of the U.S. So yeah, I actually did predict the Canada to win that game. So you guys did not watch my bold predictions video on the TG Hockey channel before the Four Nations break, or before the Four Nations started. I predicted Canada will win that game against the U.S. And so that kind of was bittersweet right there as well. Number 4 takeaway, Nathan MacKinnon took home MVP award. He had 4 goals in this tournament, I believe, for a total amount of points. I think he had like 7 points in this tournament for Canada, 4 of those being goals. And so he took MVP in this tournament. I thought it was actually going to go to Connor McDavid, not going to lie, but Nathan MacKinnon, takes it home as well. And then last one, the youth engagement that was going on during the Four Nations. So the NHL's PA Goals and Dreams program celebrated its 25th anniversary by involving the youth in pregame ceremonies. So that was another takeaway for the Four Nations, which leads me to my next topic in the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. What can we expect from the 2026 Winter Olympics? So, of course, 2026 Winter Olympics will be in Milan, Italy. And, of course, the countries participating, I should say, will be Canada, Sweden, Switzerland, Italy for Group A. And then for Group B, it will be Finland, Germany, Czech, and Denmark. Hopefully I'm getting these right, by the way, because I don't even know if I am getting these right. And then for Group C will be Russia, United States, Slovakia, and Latvia. Before they announced that Russia will be in the Olympics, they kind of had a ban, and then they were kind of being decisive on whether Russia should participate in the Olympics or not. I think they might go back to having Russia not in the Olympics, but I would love to see Russia in the Olympics, because Russia, I believe, will have a stacked team heading into the Olympics. If you add Alex Ovechkin, Kirill Kaprizov, Matei Michikov, Sergei Bobrovsky, Andrei Vasilevsky, and more other Russian hockey players on that Russian hockey team. I believe they'll have a stacked team for sure. And then it will somehow be like the Four Nations. It will be like the Four Nations, except with more countries, being involved, and it should get the same amount of hype and anticipation like the Four Nations did. But let me know you guys' thoughts on that. Do you agree or disagree whether Russia should be in the Olympics? I think it should. I believe they'll have a stacked team with Russia being in the Olympics. But let me know you guys' thoughts on that and just the 2026 Winter Olympics overall. So drop it down in the comments down below, and then I'll read your reply, and then I'll reply back the best way I can. All right, so Sunday, this is something that I did not mention on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, but you probably should have mentioned this. So for Sunday, the LA Kings hosted a Skate for LA Strong event, which was organized to, support the relief efforts, the recent wildfires and the homes that were lost in the Southern California area in Los Angeles. So that was what this event was for. And the event featured a mix of celebrities, athletes, actors, NHL alumni, and of course you got local first responders from the LA Fire Department participating in this one. Notable participants, you saw Danny DeVito there. You saw Justin Bieber there. You saw Snoop Dogg there, the D-O-double-G. You saw Will Ferrell there. Saw, like I said, former NHL players there like Mark Messier, PK Subban, Rob Blake, Jeremy Roenick there. And by the way, Jeremy Roenick actually did drop the mitts with Justin Bieber. I thought that was kind of fun to see. And then Team Red actually won that charity event, I think they defeated Team White by a combined score, I should say, of 9-0. And of course, you had somebody out there scoring goals without a helmet. I believe that was Terry Ryan. I think that's the name. He was scoring goals without a helmet in that charity event, which of course is old time hockey right there. That's like 60s hockey, that's 70s hockey, 50s hockey, just to throw that in. That's old time hockey in general, 50s hockey, 60s hockey, 70s hockey right there, scoring goals without a helmet. And of course, like I said, the event honored the first responders. It honored the fire victims, of course, people that lost their homes in the fires, and of course the wildfires that happened in LA in general. So, and of course this game was broadcast on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, True TV, Sportsnet, Pluto TV, Disney Plus, and Hulu. So it was basically all over the place, but just the celebrities, athletes, and the other people that participated in the event coming together for a great cause. And of course, the people in LA let you know we're thinking about you. We're praying for you. Pray that you make it through this together. I know it's been a tragedy these past 2 months, but you should put God first. Ask God to protect you, help you through this. Miss the time. You will get through this. You will get through this. It's been a tough time for the people in LA, but pray, ask God to protect you, and everything will be all right. It will work out in His favor. So that's all you need. All you need is prayer, faith, and hope. That's 3 things that you need to get through this tragedy together. Okay, so NHL games on the slate for today. There's only 12 games on the slate for today. You got the New York Islanders facing the Boston Bruins at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Of course, the Bruins are coming off of a 4-3 overtime loss to their rivals in the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know how they blew a 3-0 lead and lost in overtime. Bruins actually took, after the Bruins blew a 3-0 lead in that game, they actually took the lead back. And then the Leafs tied the game up at 4, and then you had Mitch Marner winning the game in overtime. And, he's been on fire of late. Of course, he was instrumental in Canada's victory over USA. He actually did score an overtime goal against Sweden, which was the first game that kicked off the Four Nations tournament. And then he provided those 2 assists, the game-tying goal for Sam Bennett, and then the golden goal, game-winning goal for Connor McDavid in that USA-Canada championship game. So he's been on fire of late. And then you got the San Jose Sharks taking on the Montreal Canadiens at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, followed by Columbus Blue Jackets taking on Detroit Red Wings at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Last game before they meet in the Stadium Series on Saturday, which on Friday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG Podcast, I will preview the Stadium Series. So stay on the lookout for that. And then you got a 2024 Stanley Cup Final rematch between the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers. So the Oilers looking back to get to their winning ways. I think they lost 2-3 straight games in a row. And so it's been a struggle for them overall. And they look to, get it done against the team that, beat them in the Stanley Cup Final last season in the Florida Panthers. Then you got the St. Louis Blues taking on the Washington Capitals at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So, of course, look to see Alex Ovechkin score another goal, getting him closer and closer and closer to Wayne Gretzky's goal record. I feel like that's what every fan tunes into Capitals games for. So whenever the Capitals play, every fan, whether you're a Washington Capitals fan or, just a hockey fan in general, you tune into the Capitals game seeing if Ovi's going to score and see if he'll move closer and closer to Wayne Gretzky's goal record. So I feel like that's the case right there. And then you got the Buffalo Sabres taking on the Carolina Hurricanes at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time, followed by the Philadelphia Flyers taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That game will be on ESPN Plus and Hulu for you to watch. Of course, the Flyers actually beat the Penguins Tuesday by a final score of 6-1 at the Wells Fargo Center. So they look to, win against the Penguins in that game. Like I said, that'll be on ESPN Plus and Hulu. Then you got a Central Division showdown between the Winnipeg Jets and the Nashville Predators at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Jets played yesterday against the Senators. Still neck and neck with the Washington Capitals in the NHL. See if they'll get a win over the Nashville Predators. Of course, the Predators season has been horrendous to watch, especially if you're a Predators fan. They lost 2 games in a row. They're coming off a 4-1 loss on Tuesday to the Florida Panthers, and then they got shut out by the Devils 5-0 as well. So trying to at least get a win against the division rivals in the Winnipeg Jets. And then you got another Central Division showdown between the Minnesota Wild and Utah Hockey Club at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time, followed by the Chicago Blackhawks taking on the VGK Vegas Golden Knights at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And in the last game of the night to wrap up the 12-game slate for today, Vancouver Canucks taking on the Anaheim Ducks at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Trevor Zegras not going to be playing in this game against Vancouver, 3-game suspension still. The Canucks played yesterday against the LA Kings, so it'll be another Pacific Division showdown for the Canucks, this time against the Anaheim Ducks. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for this episode of Hockey Talk TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. And again, apologies for getting this episode out to you guys on Thursday instead of yesterday. Really do apologize for that. But like I said, I had something really urgent that I needed to do. So that's why I was unable to get an episode out for Wednesday. But just to make up for it, putting it out for today. So, yeah, but this is just temporary. This will not be everlasting thing. This will not be forever. This is just temporary that I'm getting an episode out to you guys. So, yeah. But make sure that you guys are following the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, which you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure that you are staying tuned. Make sure that you are following the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. This is your number one podcast for all things hockey, and you want to make sure that you're following it. So you can stay up to date on the latest NHL news, general hockey news that I give to you guys on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast show. I mean, we talk NHL, AHL, college hockey, just hockey in general. And this is the podcast to stay tuned in for. So you want to make sure that you're following the podcast. Number one podcast for all things hockey. Nobody else talks about, general hockey news on this podcast. Probably might just talk about NHL. That's basically it. No other hockey news. We even talk about OHL, WHL, junior hockey, World Juniors, all that stuff. Talk about on this podcast. So this is the podcast to be if you want to hear other hockey news besides the NHL. So just every hockey news in general, I talk about it on this podcast. So this is the podcast to be. You don't want to miss an episode. Like I said, with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God first, as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'll preview the Stadium Series then. On the TG Hockey channel, I will give out my mock draft for the 2025 NHL mock draft, which will be in LA. I forgot to mention that on Monday's episode of Hockey Talk TG podcast. It'll be in LA. I'll put out a mock draft video for that, so stay tuned for all the hockey content that I give to you guys. So, yeah. And take care.